Chapter 17. Spears watched the hard metal teeth of his machine guns chew the crawler to pieces. He felt a certain satisfaction in knowing he had outsmarted his enemy, had not fallen into the trap, had not been outsmarted. The crawler shuddered under the impact, vibrating, shaking. They were close enough so the combat belly cam picked up the two troopers abandoning the landcraft, running away from the doomed vessel. "Cut them down," Spears said. If he'd thought about it longer, he might not have given that order. The new troops always needed unspoiled containers and food. But once an order was given, he was not a man to belay it unless he had good reason. Canceling orders given in the midst of combat reflected badly on a commander. It made him look indecisive, nor did it matter that these men wouldn't be around to remember these orders much longer. Spears was not an indecisive man. The crawler continued its bullet-driven dance, and the two troopers kept sprinting. "Was I unclear in my speech?" Spears said, his voice cool and tight. No, sir, but the computer is locked on the crawler. I'll have to reset it for human targets." "Do so." "Sir." The pilot's hands fluttered. The machine guns whined on their hydraulic gyros, began to alter their aim. Too late. The fleeing pair achieved the safety of the station, disappearing from view. "Sorry, sir." "Never mind. The crawler is dead. That was the primary threat. Hose down the other craft on the apron." "Sir?" "Destroy them. We don't want to get shot in the back, and we do want the only operating vehicles out here." The pilot nodded. "Yes, sir." One of the rules of combat was to do your enemy enough damage so he couldn't recover in time to damage you. Spears had control of the airspace, and he intended to keep it. And while Powell might think he had the station buttoned up, there were ways inside that he didn't know about. A wise officer never let himself be caught without an entrance or an exit. Powell was not wise. Spears was. Billie's breath came hard. The suit's tanks hadn't been designed to supply so much oxygen so quickly. But they were inside, and safe for now. Wilks was already halfway out of his climate suit, rushing toward a comm mounted on the lock wall. He slapped the comm. "This is Wilks. We've got a foobar here, Powell. Spears sent in a decoy hopper. He's taken out our crawler. We're in the south lock. Billie, what's going on out there?" Billie moved to the lock, triggered the observation cam next to it. The little holoproj lit up. Dust puffed up in little spurts around the various vessels sitting on the ground. An occasional spark glittered on the craft. And as she watched, one of the hoppers canted wildly to one side. The support struts suddenly collapsed. Billie turned back toward Wilks. "They're shooting up all of the hoppers and crawlers," she said. "You get that?" Wilks said into the comm. Powell's voice, when it came through the speaker, was nervous. "God, what are we going to do? He could peel open the station like a banana." "He won't," Wilks said. "He doesn't want to risk damaging the aliens, but he'll have an attack plan figured out. We underestimated him. If he knew enough to give us a decoy to shoot at, he'll know a way in we aren't expecting. Get whatever troops you can trust with weapons armed, fast. Get a combat op-chan working and cover every lock. And get everybody who might be loyal to Spears into a secured area PDQ." Powell said, "That won't be easy. We can't be sure." "Listen, Major. We damn well can be sure that if somebody opens a door and lets Spears in, we will be in very deep shit. Don't take any chances. If there is any doubt about a trooper's loyalty to you, put him behind a thick door." "All right. I understand." "I'll meet you in command center in 5 minutes. Wilks turned to Billie. "The general is knocking out our ability to fight him in the air, or escape on the surface. He'll be occupied with that for a while. Come on." "Where are we going?" "Powell can issue the orders, but he isn't a combat soldier."
He is going to need somebody he can trust telling him what to do. I fucked up once. We can't afford to let that happen again."
"How bad is it?" she asked.
"It could be worse. We've got the high ground. Spears can spend all his troops at one spot, and we've got to cover every entrance, so we'll be thin. But he's got to come in through a lock, and we can watch all of them. As long as it's our troops on the doors, we should be able to keep him out. Powell will be scrambling the entrance codes and putting the station on full alert, soon as he gets the general's men dogged down. Odds are still in our favor, though I should have had Powell set all this up before we tried to pot Spears. I thought sure we could knock him down. I guess that's why he's a general and I'm a sergeant. Come on."
They ran.
"Status?"
Spears said. His blood was up. He felt like a hunter tracking dangerous prey. There was some risk, to be sure, but no doubt that he would win in the end, whatever the cost.
"Sir, all of the exterior landcraft and aircraft have been immobilized. All engines appear to be dysfunctional. Power mains knocked out."
Spears nodded.
"Good."
Of course there were starships inside the base, but nobody was going to use those for flitting around on the planetoid's surface. And if Powell planned to run in the star transports, he had a big surprise coming. Spears had never bothered locking the crawlers and hoppers into his personal key code. There wasn't anywhere to run to on the planetoid. But the off-world vessels wouldn't lift a centimeter unless he okayed it. No, Powell and his little band of insurrectionists weren't going anywhere. They were bottled up in the station, and while they might think they had the edge, they were also mistaken about that.
"Put us down at these coordinates," Spears said.
He rattled off the grid numbers. Without asking why, the pilot obeyed. There was a blind spot just east of the north lock, a corridor not much wider than 20 meters that led right to the fusion plant's heat sinks. The big aluminum and ceramic plates could be used to radiate excess warmth away from the station, did there happen to be an overload the environmental pipes couldn't handle. A careful platoon could march along the no-cam corridor to the sinks, then duck the security scanners and go in either direction. Nobody would see them approach a lock. Nobody would know company was coming until they knocked on the door. True, the doors would all be scramble secured and guarded, if Powell had any brains at all. But Spears had an answer for that. Another big surprise for the mutineers. No, there wasn't any doubt as to the victory. The main thing now was to do it clean, by the numbers. 100 years from now, they would be teaching tactics based on scenarios that Spears created. Might as well begin dazzling the future now. Powell looked as if he were about to try to climb a wall, Billie thought, watching the man pace. His hands shook. He was pale. Sweat beaded at his hairline and on his upper lip. There were a dozen carbines side by side on a table in the room, with boxes of magazines stacked next to them. While Wilks went to talk to Powell, Billie moved toward the weapons. Whatever happened, she wasn't going to be standing by helplessly. A trooper with a carbine slung across his chest and held ready started to swing his weapon around as Billie approached. "Wilks?" Billie said. Wilks turned away from Powell.
"Let her have one,"
he said to the trooper. The man didn't even glance at Powell for confirmation. He knew who was in charge. Whatever the ranks involved. He nodded. Billie picked up a carbine, racked the action, checked it over. The gun was empty. Then pulled a magazine from an open box and loaded it into the piece. She took 3 more 100-round AP mags from the box and put them into her pockets, one under her belt. With 400 shots, she could theoretically kill a whole lot of things, if they didn't get her first. She slung the weapon over her shoulder. She felt a little better, now that she was armed. Wilks and Powell went back and forth. It was easy to see that Powell was scared shitless. He was a man of peace, Wilks had told her. Should have been a preacher or a medic and not a soldier. Civilized men didn't make very good warriors. Billie moved to a wall-mounted comm, told the routing computer to connect her with Mitch.
Bueller here.
There was no visual. Billie didn't know if that was on purpose or not, but he obviously couldn't see her. "Mitch," she said.
Billie, you okay?
"I'm with Wilks in the command center," she said. "We're fine."
I saw you escape from the crawler,
he said.
I was worried about you.
"No problem. What are you doing there?"
I'm going to stay in environmental control until we are certain of a stable situation. If Spears or his troops get inside, I might be able to do some good here. Shut down air or heating or lights and slow them up some. I wouldn't do much good on the line.
Billie nodded, realized he couldn't see that. Said, "I understand." And she did. Wilks had told her that the APs designed for the run to the aliens' homeworld were crack Marines, able to outshoot, outrun, and outfight ordinary men in virtually every combat scenario. The problem was that Mitch's conditioning, Asimov's modified laws, wouldn't allow him to kill humans. Unless he was certain a wound wouldn't do that, he couldn't shoot a man, even though he could put a bullet into one virtually anywhere he chose at combat ranges. A man might bleed to death from a shattered foot, after all, and androids weren't allowed to risk that. Except, of course, for those who had been built without the laws incalculated into them, which was supposed to be impossible, though Billie knew better. Most of the pirates who'd attacked them on that fucked up mission had been such androids, able to kill. "Listen, Mitch, when this is all over, we need to sit down and talk. I haven't been treating you very well. I don't understand everything about it, but I want to do better."
Thank you, Billie. You don't know how glad I am to hear that.
"No guarantees," she said. "I mean, I don't know what exactly is going to come of it."
Anything is better than nothing,
he said. She felt uncomfortable. She was still pissed at him, but the idea of dying, or of his dying, didn't feel good. Not at all. "Okay, listen, I've got to discom. I'll talk to you later."
You be very careful,
he said.
I don't want anything to happen to you. I...
Don't say it, Mitch. Not yet. She shut the comm down. Behind her, Wilks and Powell had begun yelling at each other. "Listen," Wilks said, his voice hard. "Get the fucking locks covered. Weld them shut, especially the cargo doors. You don't know what kind of code-breaking gear Spears might have. He might have access to the mainframe from out there." "Impossible. The system is shielded. The internal modems are hardened." "Damn it, Powell, this man is a soldier. Career military. And he suckered us once. If he gets inside and starts blasting, a lot of people are going to die. You didn't know about the second hopper, did you?" Powell's jaw was set tight, his lips thinned and white, but he shook his head. "No." "You can tape it that he's got something else up his sleeve. We're self-sufficient here. All he's got outside is field rations and gear. If we can keep him outside long enough, we win." Powell blew out a short breath. "All right. I'll give the order." Wilks nodded, looked at Billie. Billie didn't know much about military matters, but it seemed as if the next move was up to Spears. She didn't like that very much. The man was crazy. There was no telling what he was going to do. All they could do was wait. In his sea suit, Spears led his platoon along the wall under the sinks toward the east lock. The traders would have lost the hopper when it veered north and would probably be expecting an attack from that quarter. True, they probably could have gone in at the north lock as easily as the east, once the fifth column struck, but Spears was thinking about posterity now, If he could finish this without losing too many of his troops, it would look better to one viewing historical tapes. What an amazing commander, they would say. How adept. Spears nodded to himself as he reached the hiding spot next to the east lock. Nobody knew they were here. He had his demolitions expert set the explosive charges on the lock door itself, stressing great care, using only hand signals and helmet-to-helmet conduction. All radios were off. The charges set, his men in readiness. Spears pulled the special transmitter from his tool belt and looked at the covered button. He had not expected it would ever really come to this, but no man would ever be able to say that General Thomas A.W. Spears had been caught with his pants down in this combat sit. He flipped the button cover up with his gloved thumb and pressed the control once, hard. Grinned behind his faceplate. Powell and his little band of would-be heroes were about to have something to worry about in there. Yes, sir. Right now, the security door to the Queen's chamber would be sliding up, along with the protective covers holding 25 of the drone captives. And a tiny holographic image of Spears would be standing behind the Queen, waving a torch in his hand, urging her out of her chamber. Spears chuckled, imagining the Queen's surprise, and Powell's surprise too.
"Dinner time," Spears said. "Come and get it."